Hello, my name is Pete Saronis. I am the founder and CEO of Dachshund Bridges, where for the past 5 years since I left government, I've continued my passion for connecting the dots, building some bridges, and creating some light bulb moments, hopefully. I'm on a mission to educate, inform, and enlighten how technology affects humanity, how humanity influences culture, and how culture shapes humanity. It's cyclical through storytelling and, most importantly, translation. There's a lot of buzzwords out there in the world today. I worked inside the federal government for 25 years, kicked the career off in the Pentagon right out of Villanova University, where I finished eventually in the federal government as a member of the Senior Executive Service, which was an honor. I served 4 administrations, I served in 3 agencies, and I was honored to be a 2-time cabinet level chief technology officer, which was more like being a connective tissue officer at the Department of Energy as well as the Department of Education. Got an incredible wife from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, an amazing town with a lot of cool tech and great people, 4 amazing kids, 3 boys and a girl, and an Australian Labradoodle puppy named Phineas Maximus Saronis. Little bit about me. Today, the Dachshund Bridges Thought Leadership Consortium. What is that? It's celebrating folks you're gonna meet today, thought leaders, change agents. The public-private sector, it shares a symbiotic or maintains a relationship where one needs the other, not so much in buying, selling, but more importantly in seeking and solving. You know, how does a technology support a mission of an agency which supports our country, our world? So the technology, humanity, culture intersection is something that will be a theme and is a theme, not just for today, but also within Dachshund Bridges. What is it at the end of the day in this consortium? Well, again, you're gonna meet 3 people today that are influential, they're passionate, they tackle challenges every day. They are influencers in the federal government as well as in industry, and they believe in creating those connections rooted in trust. It's a fireside chat. There's no selling, no endorsement. We may burp. You may see a dog run across the back of one of these screens or spill some coffee, but we're just 3, 4 guys having a chat about what's important in life, you know, beyond just our jobs. But specifically, yes, GitLab, DevOps, Office of Naval Intelligence, the VA, Veterans Health, Veterans Administration, distinguishing between the 2. We'll get into that. We're going to talk about how the software development world today is evolving, and DevOps is a thing that needs to be understood and maybe a myth or 2 dispelled. But each one of these individuals are going to share what matters to them, how it's not about that buying and selling concept, but it's just having an opportunity to share what makes, in the case of GitLab, special, or understand a bit more about the mission of these 2 agencies that will be represented today. So, fireside chat, I'm about to give a little bit of an intro from myself to these great guys, and then they're gonna give a little bit of an overview, and then we're just gonna jump right in. So we're excited that you're here today. To start off, we've got our friend here, Mr. Chris Rennie, right out of Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm gonna read off some of these incredibly cool notes that I pulled together. Prior Marine and computer scientist, individual, but also thought leader who spent 20 years supporting the Navy and Marine Corps programs. He's been a contractor, he's been a Fed, he's now in industry working with the technology provider. He was an employee at the Naval Information Warfare Center, Atlantic. Served the Marine Corps, as we mentioned, Global Command and Control System, badass, as I like to say. He served in the Navy, or transitioned over to the Navy, where he led a DevSecOps transformation effort for the Naval Tool for Interoperability and Risk Assessment Project, which is an acronym that's cool, but shows about how tactically and operationally he took his strategy forward. Next up, I'm gonna pivot over to Dr. Joe Ronzio, PhD, Deputy Chief Health Technology Officer at the Veterans Health Administration. I'm not even gonna begin to tell you where that falls in the incredible org chart of the VA because it's kind of hidden in plain view. Joe will get to some of that, but started his career as an IT architect, engineer, innovator, worked at places like PNC Bank, Foxwoods Casino, IBM, Lotus, Rockwell, and the Gillette Company. I'm not a fan of the Patriots. We talked about that, but you know, Patriots or the Patriots, I'm a big Dolphins fan. In 2005, he fulfilled a childhood dream, received a commission as a medical service officer or corps officer in the US Air Force. Deployed with the Air Force in 2050 as the Director of Operations for the 379th Expeditionary Aeromedical Evacuation Squadron. How was that, Big Joe? Graduate of the GSA CXO Fellowship Program, continues is to serve as the Deputy Chief Health Technology Officer. And we're going to learn a little bit about that role today. Last but absolutely not least, Tom Hazelwood, friend, colleague, got to know Tom over the past year, Chief Engineer and Technical Architect in the Office of the Naval Intelligence, or Office of Naval Intelligence. He's managed enterprise architecture, technology operations, technology strategy, spent time at the DISA, DoD DISA, where he was the Chief Engineer on Technology Initiatives. One that comes to mind was the Joint Capability Technology Demonstrations activities. So we may reference that a bit, but all rooted in relationships with private sector. At DISA, he was also an operational test director for the Net-Centric Enterprise Service Program. Tom, to me, represents a guy who cut his teeth, rolled up his sleeves. Again, all three of these gentlemen are patriots, but served mission in some regard, and now we're serving that relationship that is so necessary in the federal government. I did fail to mention that, and I think, Chris, your background, which is, again, I have like 18 bullets for Chris Rennie, Federal Strategic Account Leader at GitLab, yes, but what has formed and shaped and what I've gotten to know about Chris is so necessary in industry to build a relationship. And that's, again, going to be a very big theme today in the conversation. So I'm going to have you gentlemen kind of do your part. I hope I didn't butcher it too bad, but let's, in your own words, just tell the folks out today, you know, who you are and how that passion for federal service and, of course, serving our country, again, shout out to all of you, has kind of formed who you are in your thinking. Tom Hazelwood?
Yeah, so I think, you know, it really started out, I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and from graduating from high school, I went into the Navy. So that started my federal service, I guess, journey. I served 8 years as a sailor in the Navy, and that basically as an operations specialist, and I did tours overseas as part of Operation United Shield. And so once I completed my tour, as an operations specialist, you have to work with everybody on the ship. And so I'm an extrovert, so I always were able to interact and integrate with people and understand what's happening, right? And so as I, went through my journey in the Navy, I moved into Penn State after going to school, and I received my degree in, management science and information systems. That basically, once I graduated from there, I became a system integrator as supporting some of the modernization activity at that point for the e-health record initiative. And that made me move into government to be, to really be on the front line of basically helping the government do not just, modernization of the health record, but other activities that are important, to the warfighter. And so that led me into being a technical architect in the business management modernization program to help basically build the futures of business systems in DoD. And it led me into working for DISA, as Pete mentioned, as a technical architect, a technical integrator. And I had to work with people. So I've always been that collaborative person to work with people. And as part of that effort, I was able to be exposed to not just having to work with people across teams, but also build applications like mobile applications and innovative applications that allowed me to basically see methods like Agile and DevOps methodologies as a way of basically bringing the people together to collaborate. And now, with the knowledge and opportunity that I had with federal service, it allowed me and led me down this path of, future modernization activities and really infusing some of not just Agile, but DevOps methodologies and approaches and tool sets, into, my current position today, as the enterprise architect. And so it helps me basically, all these things, all these opportunities that I had as either supporting the federal government or as a federal government person in the position, it required me to work with people across the different, communities and enabled me to basically, leveraging, able to institute these types of,
Sure.
Approaches into what I'm working on.
All right. Well, that was a kitchen sink and amazing, because I'm sure Chris is like, oh my gosh, we can actually connect a few dots there. And I just want to add, big fan of Penn State, Villanova, decent football team, not Penn State football, but we got the hoops, and about that. No, big time shout out to you, Tom. Your passion's obviously evident, and I appreciate you being here with us today. I think at some point too, filter into some folks the genealogy of that awesome organization you work for that's been around, since the 1800s. So, hey, Chris Rennie, let's talk about you, man. Being a former Fed, former contractor, now you've had an incredible journey. Please share, a bit about what you believe has defined you and why GitLab's a nice match for you and you think for government.
I got to tell you, I listened to Tom. It felt like a very similar track to me, except I went the Marine Corps side of the house. So yeah, born and raised in upstate New York, Watertown, a little hour north of Syracuse. Honestly, a little bit closer to Canada than it was to Syracuse, but go Cuse basketball. Love those guys. But when I turned 17, I enlisted in the Marine Corps, needed that next challenge. In the Marine Corps, I came in. You get assigned a billet, right? I became what they call the 9919, which eventually became an 0511. That's a Marine Air Ground Task Force plan. What is that, right? So I was the guy that helped plan for the operational deployment of forces in support of exercises and operations. I was stationed down in Marine Forces Reserve in New Orleans as a, an active duty guy on a reservist base, kind of a very unique experience. Arrived there Valentine's Day, 1998, in the throes of Mardi Gras. So what better place to send a 18-year-old kid, right, than to Mardi Gras? And it was a great experience, but I got out of there. I wanted to go to college for computer science. 9/11 happened, and the world changed. I was recalled to active duty because the thing I specialized in when I was not working in the Southern Command area of responsibility was planning for major wargaming events, if you will, such as North Korea and invasion of Iraq, if you will. So I specialized in the integration of reserve forces and of active duty units. So when 9/11 happened, one MEF came calling, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, that said, hey, we need a MACTF planner. We need someone that can come in here and help us integrate reserve forces and active duty units to go ahead and get them out there to Iraq. So one of the first batches recalled, little great trivia knowledge. If anyone's watched Generation Kill, that was my unit that I deployed out there, first Force Recon. Having known the people personally that was in there, I mean, absolute testament. I really love that. But after I spent, 4 years there originally, then 2 more years recalled to active duty, I transitioned out, worked for Computer Science Corporation, eventually Egan McAllister Associates, then SAIC and Booz Allen Hamilton. Worked for a lot of different contracting companies, doing various degrees of capability and support of the global command and control system. I started off as that system administrator out there in the field. I was there in Fallujah for the invasions of the city both times. Great stories on that. Love to talk about that at another time if everyone's interested. But after that, I came out here, became a software tester in Charleston, South Carolina. Did software integration, network engineering, network architecture. Did some software development here and there. And after all those technical roles, the government's like, hey, you've been involved in this thing for a long time. You know the inner workings of it. Let's get you into project management. That's when I went over to Booz Allen Hamilton. Spent a little bit of time there, and then they said, all right, time to insource you. Let's have you come in as the integrated product technical lead for the program. I did a lot of work. I geek out. I love computer science, but I geek out on process too. So let's go ahead and get software out there to the fleet faster. Did that for, again, about 19, 20 years overall in support of the global command control system. And then I got to pursue my passion. I didn't even know I was doing DevSecOps until I read the Phoenix Project. And then and that was recommended to me by Dr. George Esparza, awesome lead system engineer I worked with out of Marcor Syscom. We read that book together, and I'm like, yeah, that's us. That's us. We didn't realize that's what it was, but that's us, right? And then I started going to conferences, loved all that, Nashville, anything I could just process as it related to DevOps. I enjoyed it. And then I got the opportunity to go ahead and support the Naval Tool for Inevitability and Risk Assessment, where I got to do a DevOps, we'll just call it a restart, if you will. Really loved the time I spent with them, but after a little while, transitioned out of there and went back to the contractor world. And that's where GitLab picked me up. They're like, hey, you've been helping us out, getting meetings with this and that. You bought the product from us when you're on the federal side of the house, right? And I'm like, it's a great product. I'm like, here's what I think you need to go after. Go do this, this, and this. I was connecting them with people that I thought they should be talking to. And But after, I think it was like 2.5 years working with GitLab in that capacity, like, how would you like to come on board and sell? And I'm like, I'm not a sales guy. That's not me.
I
like,
get it, man.
You're
I'm
sales,
with you on that.
you just don't know it. And so they took a chance on me, and I really enjoyed it because, again, DevOps is my passion. And now I get to go talk to a lot of Navy, Marine Corps, and Defense Health Agency people about, my journey and what DevOps has meant for me, and how I think GitLab can probably help them to achieve some of their organizational goals.
Well, look, Chris, again, incredible story. I think, your last few comments there of GitLab seeing that in you, and I think I can speak for my colleagues here, when you're a federal employee and you've worked or served military, you know that it's not about the selling, right? You serve a mission. We need tech. Tech, supports critical sectors in our country, which then support the city, the resident, the community. And that, again, whether it's healthcare, whether it's intelligence, whether it's energy, transportation, what an opportunity for GitLab to have you on the team, and thank you for that kind of passion and mission that you serve every day. Dr. Joe, letters after your name, Defense Chief Health, VA Health Technology Officer. Give us a little bit about you, my friend, and how folks can learn a bit about you and your passion.
So I have the opposite progression. I actually started out in industry. And I have a similar story for after 9/11, but I was doing 20 years in industry beforehand. Then 9/11 happened. I thought I was too old to go into the service. My wife had a friend who was graduating from her PhD program and retiring from the US Navy at the time. So we started chatting. Several of her friends were like, oh, you can still come in. And so the Navy immediately started to recruit me as a combat communications officer. I went to the Army, went to the Air Force. The Army said, combat communications. The Air Force says, well, we'd like you to apply for the chance to become a Medical Services Corps officer. So I actually went through the whole process that took over a year. But the trick for my wife was the recruiter actually gave her a call and told her they would only be selecting 15, and they typically get between 10 and 15,000 applicants. So my wife figured that's Vegas odds. There's no way he's getting that commission slot. She was quite surprised when I got that. So I commissioned as a Medical Services Corps officer in 2005. From there, and that was an active duty commission. So I was right on board, everything going on in the military at that time. Came in as a direct accession. After doing active duty, I had about 4 different slots in that three-year periods. But in 2008, I started to see the writing on the wall. If you don't have a terminal degree within the medical environment, it becomes very challenging. So I got accepted into a Doctor of Health Sciences program with A.T. Still University. And I'm amazed through this whole process that my wife didn't smother me in my sleep or have a way of getting rid of me, because it was a challenging time through active duty, as well as me going into a doctorate program. While at that point we had 1 child, got into the doctorate program, we had our 2nd child. So both Xander and Elizabeth, they're great to be around.
Cool names, by the way.
Thank you. And now we're in 2008, when I was in the doctorate program, I was using the GI Bill and figured, well, if I'm not working active duty for the Air Force, I was in the reserves, who would I be working for? So I actually did apply for Veterans Affairs. I started out at the Portland facility as the facility strategic planner. After a year of doing that, the regional office called up and they go, you know a little bit about technology? We'd really like you to start implementing our telehealth programs across the region. So that's Alaska down to Northern California and out to Idaho, with a couple of other states. But in that process, I ended up working there from 2009 to 2012. And in 12, the US Navy gave me an offer that was going to be difficult to refuse. So I was on the West Coast, all of our family is on the East Coast. My parents are in Rhode Island, my in-laws are in Massachusetts, and we have a smattering of everyone up and down the East Coast. So I wanted to get back here. So I became the Director of Health Information Management for the US Navy in 2012. And then again, no good deed goes unpunished. In 2013, Dr. Jesse was the Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Health in VA. And he's like, I'd really like to get you back. I had done several details with his office previously, and I was like, okay. So we had a little discussion of what would be appropriate. And in the process, Craig saw my resume, Craig Lugart, and asked for me just to be a share of time. So no more than 25% of the time I'd be working for him. And as Pete said, I got deployed in 2015 to Qatar as the director of operations for AE. And when I came back, Bob was no longer in his slot. Craig took over the rest of the 75%. So I became his deputy in 2016, late 2015, and been in that role ever since. It's been an amazing journey, a lot of fun challenges, opportunities that I would have never had. But it's that opposite role of I did so well in business, and I really did want to pay society back and drag my family along with me while we've been doing it, which has been an excellent experience. My wife does a lot of volunteer work and is able to help veterans on bases and do other support.
Well, I mean, Joe, look, you folks, I almost need like 3 hours for my shows, because while I one day hope to be, now they're all in heaven and doing well, a little bit Anthony Bourdain, I want to make tech interesting. I want to do a little bit of the, what he did for food. I want to be a little Tim Russert and cause a little bit of, hey, you said what on Meet the Press. And then of course, you know, James Lipton is the mentor, and he doesn't realize the way he would just interview and humanize people. That what you three just did was amazing. And I hope whoever watches this and is watching, that you got to pay attention to these journeys, because what you find about people and their character is in that journey, I think. And that's what I always loved to share when I was being sold to. So Chris, you know, I love that you spent that time on your journey and how you end up with GitLab. And look, the key theme I was writing down is evolution, right? You're evolving as leaders. You're ending up in places you didn't expect. You know, the themes of today, which if I can go back to that, were, you know, yes, I'm going to read them. Integrating DevOps methodologies to drive new value and transform agency culture, right? I'm going to get into that here in a minute. How do we accelerate software delivery? Well, DevOps and Agile, and, you know, even in the roots of waterfall and what it is and what it isn't, it's evolving. You know, we use a lot of terms and buzzwords, but developing software in real time with a culture and a collaborative community, obviously GitLab, you're gonna maybe address some of what makes that special about your tool chain. And then, you know, these approaches to evolve the business process as the process is evolving. I'd love if Tom, you and Joe can, you know, maybe reference some use cases where Agile you see being beneficial, maybe in a past life and a former, and then again, to create this opportunity where seekers and solvers have come together. So, you know, Chris, I'm going to go back to you, pal. The value proposition of GitLab, you know, its tool chain, what did it, as a remote company, maybe start with that, you know, what led to its company, you know, mission in terms of being one that isn't just about DevOps, but has some, you know, secret sauce that is unique to and can benefit the government?
Yeah, so I think before I get into that secret sauce, it was interesting when I was approached by Craig Pepper, a great inside sales rep at GitLab. He worked at IBM, sold me a lot of products when I was over there. And he talked to me, he goes, hey, I heard you're over there at Intira. He goes, have you looked at GitLab? I'm like, yeah, we've looked at that source code repository. He goes, no, he goes, have you looked at all of it? And it was interesting because it was a great moment in time for us over there, because we got together collaboratively as a team, hashed out, like, here's all the tools we want to get in our DevSecOps tool chain. I mean, we spent months working on this thing. And then we go ahead, getting this thing approved, and then Craig Pepper comes in, throws us the curveball. I'm like, I'll take a meeting, man. I like you. Great. Let's hear the pitch. And we got in there, and we're right in the middle of a contract gap, and that created its own issue. But while I was working with the government staff, we went through the pitch, and I listened to it, and I'm like, I thought to myself, where were you guys like 6 months ago? Because we spent all this time crafting all these tools, figuring out how we're going to integrate this thing, make it work. But that's the beauty of GitLab that we learned that day. GitLab is a complete DevSecOps lifecycle capability all in one tool. I mean, there's 10 phases of it, but it can be done on one tool. And for me, having been a guy that's, you know, again, I didn't know I was doing DevSecOps for a while. And then I was in it, and then I got this tool and that tool and this and that. What I learned over time was that the more complicated it gets, the harder it is to maintain, and it actually slows down software release velocity. Going back to the principles of KISS is so incredibly important, particularly in government.
Keeping it simple, stupid, correct?
Right. Yeah, okay. You said it. Yes.
Yeah.
And but I think honing in on that, it's a game changer. And once you get back to the real mission is, we're just trying to develop code and release it to the warfighter. Let's make that the mission.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, great point. And again, teaching moments here for anybody who's listening and thinks they know it. We'll maybe say DevSecOps, DevOps, but the system or software development lifecycle we know to be define, design, build, test, develop, plan. It's cyclical. And DevOps, an offshoot, some people like to say, and I endorse personally, is that it's like there's Agile, which allows us to kind of do things quicker, faster, maybe better, cheaper, but engaging community. So pivoting back to Tom here for a minute, community, technology, Office of Naval Intelligence aside, what have you seen in the Tom Hazelwood, world of things, how important that collaboration with industry, but also in your own culture to introduce technology and the importance of folks understanding the power of the technology?
Yeah, so I've seen both sides, right? I've been participating. I have participated in non-collaborative, initiatives, right, where everybody, the communities all had their own little, silos of expertise, and what happens is it absolutely led to a lot of poor integration activities, lack of understanding of the user requirements, what the user was looking for, and really the inability to deliver effective and operational ready capabilities. It ended that way. And what happens is I see this whole DevOps mindset really driving driving and helping make sure that we're working as a community to develop the community of practice to collaborate and communicate across the different legacy stovepipes that we worked with previously. And so, good example is, as mentioned, I worked in Net-Centric Enterprise Services program, right? It was an early program on how to do service-oriented architecture, right? It did take a waterfall approach, right? But they realized, and DISA realized long, it wasn't about just getting something done. It was a journey, right, of building a community and understanding what the warfighter to better understand what they need and ensuring that it's meeting a gap or a requirement that they're looking to address. And so, I think this evolved when I was at DISA was this idea of, building these more integrated teams to basically share and build innovative approaches as well as solutions, and really looking at this. We used Agile, basically looking at, working collectively to really build these capabilities, and at the same time is incorporate the customers and the warfighter involved in the process, so that we're not only delivering a capability, but we're delivering a secure capability, and we're continuing to evolve that capability based on feedback from the customers.
Yeah, well, let me just chime in, just because I feel the need to, is what, Tom, you're discussing or addressing here, and that is the complexity, right? There's the software development lifecycle, which we could all Google or search and say, well, there's the traditional. Then you get into waterfall, iterative, spiral, V-model, Big Bang, whatever it is, right? Then you get into Agile, and then you're talking about this. It starts with, what's the problem? Where's the requirement? And I cut you off intentionally because I want to jump to Joe about this canary in the coal mine. And Joe, I don't want to steal your awesome line, but teeing you up is, it is challenging to bring communities together. So high five to you, obviously, Tom, and understanding that and owning it. And of course, Chris, it's like you being able to apply a lot of that learnings and human component and to automate is amazing. But make no mistake, folks watching this, coding is at the root of it. And what you think about when you hear coding, don't just think open source or proprietary and our friends who are wonderful geeks out there coding. It's bringing this community. The technology is not the problem. But there's unit testing, integration testing, system testing, acceptance testing. All of these are components that have been, quote unquote, kind of siloed. And that's the beauty of what we're in now, whether you develop in the cloud or use Kubernetes to do it in a container or leverage GitLab, because it seems to have brought it all together. Okay, I want to pivot though for a minute there, Tom, and go to Joe. Joe, you know, maybe this is a good opportunity. You got a unique role and you've used that phrase. I'm going to let you have it back, but you've also said things about don't just tell me, but show me. Can you speak to, as you're running around or investigating in your own backyard, where there are challenges and how maybe DevOps can help solve some of those or is solving?
Within VA, we're always looking for the next advancement. Where is healthcare and technology going to combine over the next 5, 10, 15 years? If we start looking at the way we've done medical practice from the 1920s, which is on average what's still going on within medical practice, we're not going to truly advance. So we've got a lot of research that's pointing to advancements in biometric data gathering. But with all of that, what we want to do is we want to have that collaboration with industry. So we do have a VHA Innovation Sandbox, but I take a lot of pride in our office. So Craig Lugart's a naval veteran. We have an office right now that is actually 100% veterans. So with that capability, we can work within VA, collaborate, and bring things together with the understanding of what's going to help us as well. So it's a little bit of a selfish capability that we're looking for, but we're all going to get older. And again, with 75% of the group here being veterans, I'm sure they want to make sure that we're using the resources to the best of the ability for the government agency.
So let me just chime in. So Chris, again, you know, hearing that, I could just imagine you're thinking, all right, here's a guy who works with the, not just end user, but the one that may or may not be impacted, right? Knowing the metrics of a veteran, forget titles, right? Joe's got a great title. Tom's got a great title. You know, shout out to Zeke Maldonado, by the way, new CIO at the ONI, great guy to work for. You know, in our prep calls, Chris, you know, we talked a lot about the reason for those is to kind of get to know one another and get past that technology won't be the problem. It's where's the opportunity to show. Maybe there's a data set, maybe there's a team that's trying to embrace DevOps. I think that's significant because I'm looking at, and in all my prep, all you got to do is type in gitlab.com and say, these are the value add of DevOps, and then here's what we do special. Can you wax a little bit, you know, from a GitLab perspective, Chris, you know, and kind of keep it, you know, short and sweet here, but like that importance of, or maybe what are some of your personal challenges trying to find folks like Joe and Tom that say, hey, I'm happy to show you, I'm happy to engage you. What are you finding is the biggest challenge with government in terms of just getting the opportunity to talk about GitLab as an enabler for innovation?
Great question. So I'll tell you, as a whole, and everyone knows this, that having worked with the government, they're just risk adverse, right? It's hard to go ahead and bet on something until you see it. So I really like what Dr. Joe is doing over there and setting up that, you know, that test bed environment, because I honestly relish the opportunity to go ahead and show people what is possible. I've been in DevSecOps since 2012, right? I've tried out a lot of things, helped out a lot of organizations, you know, test this out and work that. And what I can bring to the table, and I think that's the reason why GitLab brought me over, was, you know, that street credibility. I've been there, done that, walked through those shoes. I've went through that, the ATO process. I understand the headaches and the hurdles that everyone's going to go through, but, you know, I'm not going to be the easy button, but I can help people work through the process. Here's what, you know, here's the pitfalls I think we need to avoid. Here's things I think I've seen work elsewhere. And I just really love that engagement. And so in my current, you know, role, you know, we're getting brought over for Defense Health Agency, as well as here in the data center here in Charleston. In fact, we got in December of last year, while I was at the Charleston Defense Contractors Association Defense Summit, I had a government rep, Edmund Cuccio out of Nyawick Atlantic, hit me up, and he goes, hey, Navy's wants to take the lessons learned we've seen in Air Force and elsewhere, and like, how can we go ahead and create a more simplified environment over here? And he goes, I've been looking at GitLab. I think it might be the right fit. He goes, would you be willing to work with us and develop a prototype for it? So we've done that. You know, we've come in, we've created a you know, load balance, auto scaled, highly available GitLab instance with, you know, like a SonarQube in there and twist lock integrated in an impact level 4, impact level 5 environment AWS, which Dr. Joe over there, I know you got AWS over there. So we're already working in those capacities there. And then, but that's just phase one, right? Once we get through this, and we expect this thing to be accredited by November, December of this year, Defense Health Agency heard about that. They're like, hey, let's take that. We got a couple other tools we want to use over here. Can you integrate with it? Absolutely. Happy to help you out with that. And but we're looking at that long-term continuous authorization in an impact level 6. So whether you're looking for that high side capability or you want to go ahead and health, right? You got to compartmentalize your information. This can only go here and go there. You know, develop once, deploy at multiple places, or even if it's disconnected ops. Just look for those opportunities to help out, and we'll prove it to you.
Yeah, awesome tee up. Now I'm going to pivot back to my feds. We titled this discussion, Catalyzing Business Resilience with a DevOps Roadmap. Roadmap, we kind of know what that means. DevOps, let's just assume, look, we all know it's important. It's the new normal, right? How we're developing in communities. Business resilience, though, is a term I love. And Chris, you've used this with me. I mean, I think of resilience with the power grid and the critical infrastructure. Things happen, right? Our roads, our highways, our planes, trains, automobiles. As we move into an IoT world, we depend on information and things go down, and how quick can they come back up? But having a roadmap, Tom Hazelwood, or actually let's jump down to Joe for a minute, right? Joe, road mapping, right? We can, till the cows come home, talk to people in the VA, talk to people in the Air Force, and this is going to be for you too, Tom, right? More on the operational side. Roadmaps are great documents. They're living, breathing, and dynamic though. And with the pace at which technology is evolving and the requirements coming out of O&D and FITARA scorecarding, hearing what Chris just said though, how do you, Joe, approach that? Hey, we got to have a plan. Show me a person without a plan. I'll show you a person who plans to fail, was a mentor of mine used to say, or is, and hopefully still is. How do you roadmap that in your role? How do you engage so that there is something to march toward and then integrate the technology?
And that's a tremendous exercise that we go through typically every 18 months or so, where we're looking at what's on the future, engaging with cooperative research and development agreements with industry, getting read-ins on what future products are. So that it's not very easy, but it is a thought process you have to run through. The good part is, as I said, we're constantly looking at over the horizon. We're constantly looking at within our office at what we need to do, not what we are doing. And that's the difference between the Office of the Chief Health Technology Officer versus the Office of the CIO.
Great
so
point.
Right now, within the Office of the CIO, they're busy implementing a lot of systems. We're constantly looking forward. Where can we establish new relationships? How can we collaborate? And both with DoD and industry.
I mean, that wonderful. That's connective tissue. That's dot connecting. That's taking it on to go find and knock on doors in your own neighborhood. And Chris, I would think that resonates with you. And Joe's probably not a guy, or is a guy you probably need to have some follow-on conversation with. Because shout out to CIO Graffair and all the wonderful CIOs in government. They'll all tell you that, yes, they want to modernize and innovate, but they got to keep the lights on. But somebody needs to be looking at a roadmap. Tom, can you speak to that in your more tactical role in operational, working for the CIO directly?
Yeah, so how do we continue to build our roadmaps and making sure that it is aligned to what our customers need, right? Our customers are diverse, right? It's just not the U.S. Navy, it's the war fighters, it's national decision makers, and other agencies. So we have a broad community that we have to address. And so by and large, to ensure that we're answering the mail, we are engaging those individual stakeholders continuously, because, the thing about it is, it's information that has to be collected is not static, right? It's always changing. It's always evolving, right? Our threats are, whether it is, transnational threats for, civil maritime counterintelligence, or basically any type of counter narcotics, there's always threats, and it's always evolving. And we don't have a pinpoint of what the specific requirement is today, or we understand what the requirement is today, but the intelligence requirements are always, and information requirements are always changing. And so we always have to be on our on point to collaborate with our community to better understand what this evolving requirement is and what we need to deliver to them from an information, warfare perspective. And so, point being, yep.
No. Keep going. I have a question for Chris.
Yeah, so doing that, it really requires us to be more agile, more engaged, and more focused on, delivering fast capability at a rapid rate. At the same time, is continuing to keep our, ears, eyes, to the forward to make sure that we understand that those requirements are static. They're not static. They're continuously evolving.
So Chris, I'm seeing you nod because I know you want to chime in. And guys, remember, we talked about this. Raise your hand, jump in, make a comment. Joe, I have to give the shout out because I keep referring to this, though. One of my favorite Dr. Joe lines is the basic mission under Craig's leadership is we try to be the canary in the coal mine, detecting problems and looking for solutions before there are major issues and challenges. I mean, that to me reflects and symbolizes what the government should be doing every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And Chris, yes, the easy answer is go find the CIO. But there are protocols, I'm sure, and we know of one now at the VA, which has ties into healthcare community, which has ties into DOD, which has ties into intelligence. And hearing Tom, that's to me why I could see you kind of like, yes, I want to talk with them because all I want to do is show the value. What are your comments to some of what Tom and Joe are indicating in terms of having that protocol?
Yeah, Tom, really appreciate that story. And I think what we're all talking about here is kind of speed to mission, right? How do we go ahead and quickly release secure software to the operational forces or on the health side of the house in support of our, service members? Requirements change, we get that. But is the process capable to rapidly adapt to those evolving requirements? And I think one of the things that I always tell people, one of the best ways to make sure you deliver the product they need and not necessarily the product they want, it's a little different, right? This is what they need, is going ahead and closing those feedback loops. So if you can get it, again, it's culturally as well as a tool problem, being open and receptive to inputs, right? But a great way of accommodating that is through, collaboration. Why not look at collaboration as far as a tool as well? Imagine that, providing guest user accounts, right? For your developers are writing this code and this and that, but we have lots of loss in translation. Feature requests will come into the help desk. The help desk will log it, and then they put it over here in this project planning tool. And then they'll go ahead and they'll take their view on what that was. And then it gets into the development pipeline. And before long, you got this, this telephone game, and yes, the requirement you thought you needed, you might have spent 6 months developing a capability. It's the wrong one. But imagine, if you will, if the end user, the ultimate end user, was able to put in the request themselves and watch that request navigate throughout the entire DevSecOps lifecycle all the way out to release. And oh yeah, by the way, if there is an issue, they can be engaged, talk with that end user. Is this what you really meant, right? So you're not wasting cycles developing the wrong product, and you got confirmation early that what you're delivering is what meets their needs.
All right, Big Joe, you want to jump in here?
Well, it's interesting because in healthcare, most people view the average end user as the medical staff. And as we've been rolling out more and more telehealth capabilities, applications, and technology, we've moved that completely to a different foundation where the veteran no longer is getting healthcare done to them. They're collaborating with their medical team. They're actually a user of the system and the software, and they're able to see their data at a level that you could never have imagined of 5-10 years ago. So now that they're accessing the data, they want to be able to use more applications. With HealthKit APIs and CareKit APIs, we're now coming to a whole new level. And as we're moving towards ResearchKit APIs, where a patient themselves can sign up for a research protocol and be a complete collaborator through the entire healthcare process. It's a new world out there for the way we have to think about applications within our markets.
Awesome. Great transition. Tom, what are your thoughts on some of that? We're talking about feedback loops and transparency in the value chain. And sometimes, to your great comment there, Chris. A requirement today could change tomorrow by enlightenment of having a conversation with industry saying, you said your problem's this, but if we peel back the onion a bit, it may appear to be that because that's what you experienced, maybe Chris at another agency. Tom, you want to kind of just comment on some of this feedback loop and dynamic process of requirements definition?
I mean, yeah. So I mean, overall, I have to say that my opinion is the government is still evolving into really building this, right? I mean, I know that Joe mentioned, I think that Chris mentioned or Joe mentioned 6 months, of delivering capabilities, and as mentioned, is our requirements are the need for our stakeholders are not, they can't wait 6 months, they can't wait that long. They really want this idea of building, really this really granular services to be delivered to them. We're looking at like microservices as a mechanism really and we're bringing down, really putting, really pushing services to the warfighters as fast as possible. And so because of our continuous, requirement to basically answer the information requirements for our stakeholders, we are looking at, reducing a lot of our delivery cycles and figuring out what are the tool sets that we need to institute from a DevSecOps perspective and what tools do we have in place now so that we can really, be speed to mission, right? Really get services in the hands and the information necessary so decision makers can make decisions and information is at their fingertips. Over.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I want to kind of chime in. You hit all the points I wanted to talk about, Tom. It's like, right, we can't just get a tool in there. We also got to look at it from a process perspective. And oftentimes when I'm seeing those delays, and again, that was a particular customer taking 6 months to get out there, I'm like, what's really causing those delays? And as we started to get to that root cause analysis, what we found out was that they're still siloed, right? I can't take credit for the term, it's agile fall, right? It's like many waterfalls that are out there. But I'm like, what's causing that? And as we peeled back that onion, we realized your security scans are happening at the tail end of it. And then if it doesn't pass this, it goes back and you got multiple iterations until it gets there. I'm like, why not go ahead and put the security scans closer to the developer where the bug can be fixed a lot cheaper than it is down the road. And if it gets solved there, you're gonna be dropping releases nonstop. Let's not wait for over there. Get that visibility, create that transparency. And once you have that, they're going to have confidence within the system and the process and the developers, they'll be happy. I mean, you're going to attract great talent.
So before we move into our parting shots, and again, for those who've watched the Dachshund Bridges Thought Leadership Consortium in the past, we'd like to finish with what do we want to leave with the audience to either create that light bulb moment or maybe want some follow-up, because this is a continuous dialogue. So this is me kind of sucking the air out while these three awesome guys are thinking about what it is their parting shot's going to be. But before we go there, I want in 20 seconds or less. I'm going to start with Tom. This is your parting shot. But Tom, tell one another, Chris, industry, we talked about seeking and solving. The government spends $90 billion a year on IT. Joe, we know it spends $140 billion on R&D in our country, right, to solve problems that are brought to us by way of the Hill through the administrations. It's agnostic, bipartisan stuff. There's a lot of money in this space, right? Government, largest purchaser of IT. Tom, what do you say to industry that says, look, our doors are open, but come prepared? What is this is in parting shot, what is your shot across the bow to industry that wants to have a conversation with you?
Well, yeah. So I like that opportunity, right? I'll just give you a little anecdote, right? When I worked at DISA, and sorry, Pete, hopefully this is all right. I worked at DISA, I worked in the innovation shop, and what happens is my government boss would say to industry, take your name tag off, right? It's about getting capability delivered collectively. It was a community, right? And not anyone can deliver a capability. It has to be an integrated effort. So because everybody has a gap to fill, a need to fill. And so what I would say to the industry is come understanding that you're a team player and you're a partner. You're not the only person in town, and you have to work collectively. We talked about this idea of a collaborative and a community of practice, and you have to be a partner in understanding what's there, how the tool sets all fit together, and how we can work together to deliver a capability that's secure and at the same time effective. And so again, it comes back to, it's not a one size fits all, it's a team effort, and industry has to understand that there's teams and partners that have to work together. Over.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Dr. Joe, same question to you.
If you're going to come to us, understand our mission and don't tell us how you're going to save money. That needs to happen, but we need to know how we're going to meet the mission better. That's the focus of everything that we need to do.
Love it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I think anybody watching can say they should be fortunate to come across a Tom Hazelwood and Joe Ronzio in their travels through government. Okay, Chris, that just means for you, my friend, that was more for something for you to absorb as well, obviously, because I think you have a relationship cultivating with these fellas. Chris, parting shot, 30 seconds or less. What do you want to leave? Whether it's why you love GitLab, what you loved about today, what you hope if somebody says, when I have that guy, Chris Rennie, coming, you know, I'm prepared to hear fill in the blank. What's your parting shot from today?
Well, yeah, that time limit, that's tough for a guy that likes to talk, but I'll tell you, looking at, listening to everyone, yeah, it's about the requirements, right? Being about the warfighter and putting that customer first, being a part of that journey. And we got, you know, you got to be adaptable. With us, you know, we're always looking for the opportunity to help the customer with their mission. With me personally, having been the warfighter and having worked in the capacities I have on the federal side of the house, I look forward to the opportunity to help the government and the federal government get to where they want to be. And I think this is an interesting time for us, right? For the longest time, the government's always lagged behind industry by 10 years. And again, I've been doing this since 2012. I'm seeing that gap close. And how we close that gap is by engaging with the Toms and the Dr. Ronzio and just say, all right, let's figure this thing out. We got the right people, the right places. We got the right tools. Let's hash this thing out and see what we can make happen, because at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about the warfighter. And at GitLab, I love the opportunity to engage with all these various entities and help them support them, because it's, again, even to this day, even though I'm wearing the GitLab shirt, I'm still very mission-oriented in support of the warfighter.
Well, your passion is evident, and thank you again for serving in industry, government, and that was awesome. It embodies who you are. Tom Hazelwood, parting shot.
I just want to express my appreciation. I think awesome. I definitely want to know better about some of the DevSecOps tools that are available that we have to, you know, that I think would be valuable to us to incorporate into, you know, our efforts, because I think, you know, we understand it's not when are we going to get to this DevOps environment, but, you know, why aren't we there yet, and how do we get there faster, right? We still have pockets of waterfall implementations, and so it's, again, as mentioned, it's a maturity effort that we're continuing to work and understand and figure out is our way forward. Because I think it's well worth the benefit of us really infusing some of these tools to really ensure that we are delivering effective capability.
Tom, you're a guy I've gotten to know, and every time I hear you talk, again, it's that desire for wanting to be collaborative and embrace the open government principles. So thank you again for your service and for your comments. Dr. Joe.
Well, right now, especially given the current global situation, healthcare is on everyone's mind. So the only thing I would say as a parting shot is that be involved as you accumulate your own data, as you interact with the healthcare systems. Understand that whether you're a government agency or you're an individual or you're a vendor, this is your data and your health. Let's hopefully, as a society, we can make the most of it and start working research to identify things earlier and prevent serious health problems.
Wonderful. I'm going to finish with this. The three of you, amazing, awesome, badasses. Yes. three of you, you're Sherpas, you are seekers, you are solvers. You know, it's not one is and one isn't. We talked about that at the outset. Every story today, how it touches humanity, right? Think back to that. And I asked that, you know, as a former Fed, this is what I used to love. And I never used to articulate it in a way, but it was, yes, how does this technology that's not a problem affecting humanity, right? The world. And then how is that influencing the culture that ultimately shapes that technology? That's important. Each of you, whether you realize it or not, just embody that. And I say to those watching, listen, record, watch again. Tom and Joe reflect what it's like working on the outside. Chris can talk to you about what it's like working on the outside, trying to get on the inside. But at the end of the day, everybody has to embrace the opportunity and be willing to collaborate, even if it's a little bit tough on those days. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chris. Excited to know each of you. We'll stay in touch. And for until the next time, thanks again for your comments and service to our country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.